It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of July 16th, 2004. We've got 4 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Just go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that's Will Smith starring in the action-adventure I, Robot. It's based off of Isaac Asimov's 1950 short story collection called I, Robot, but it's not really based off the book in general. It's literally described on here as based on a premise suggested by I, Robot. When you really look at the movie, they basically just took the title. It would have been easy to just say, title taken from I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. That makes a whole lot more sense, but in the film, you have a film set in Chicago in 2035, which, hey, 11 years from now, this is what Chicago's going to look like, and I somehow really doubt that that's what Chicago's going to look like in 11 years from now, but who knows? Who knows what will actually happen? But in 2035, highly intelligent robots fill public service positions throughout the world, operating under the 3 laws to keep humans safe. You have Detective Del Spooner, played by Will Smith, investigating the alleged suicide of U.S. robotics founder Alfred Lanning, played by James Cromwell, and believes that a human-like robot called Sonny, played by Alan Tudyk, murdered him. And, yeah, the biggest problem with the movie in general is that, yeah, it's not based off of Isaac Asimov's book of the same name. I mean, that's one of the big things you could take away from this right away. It feels kind of more just like a generic sci-fi action film in general, but it's Alex Proyas. Alex Proyas directed The Crow. He also did Dark City. He's good at taking stuff like this and making it work, and he does a pretty good job making this work as well. Even though it's not based off the source material well, it's still a fun movie in general. I like Will Smith a lot in this movie. I think Alan Tudyk, who's having a really good year with this and Dodgeball, and he really is a very underrated actor in general, and he really gives one of the best performances of his career in this movie. I mean, he really, it's hard to believe it's actually him at first. Like, it's one of those ones where when you watch it the first time, you can't really tell who it is, and then, like, it's one of those ones where you don't know it at first, and then as slowly but surely, as you watch the movie as it goes along, you think that voice sounds very familiar, and then it turns out to be Alan Tudyk, and yeah, he's really given it his all in the movie in general. The visuals are very impressive to look at. The action sequences are really cool to take a look to watch. It has a lot of good fun moments. I like the climax a lot. I think there's a lot of really fun things that they do with the climax in general. It's a visually gorgeous looking film to look at. I mean, when these robots are attacking the main characters at the end of the movie, it looks legitimately cool, like them climbing up the building and all that. I mean, it's really cool stuff in general, and the film overall is very fun. Overall. It's a good, fun summer blockbuster popcorn type of film. Like, you go in there, you turn your brain off, and you just have a good time with it. And yeah, if you look at the story and the plot in general, it really does not work in the long run. Especially how, why does Will Smith hate these robots so much? And when they do kind of explain it, it really doesn't work in the favor that I think they wanted it to work in. But it's not a bad explanation. It just feels like something that really should have been better explained more in general. But here it doesn't really work as well as I think they wanted it to. But the story really is the opposite. What am I trying to say here? The story really does take a back seat in this situation. That's what I was trying to say. But you get the idea here. You go into this having a good time watching the visual effects, watching these actors do what they do best. Everybody in the movie works fine for what they're trying to do here. I mean, they all fit their roles very well. The action sequences are really cool. There is a lot of fun factors brought into this whole film. It's Alex Proyas doing what Alex Proyas does best in general. It may not be one of his better films in general, but it's still a really good fun film overall. It's a very good fun time overall. It's a good fun film. I like I, Robot a lot. If you're going into this looking for something so similar to the book it's based on, you're not going to find it in this movie. But if you're just going in there having a good time, looking for a good time in general, it'll definitely do the trick for you. It's a really good film. I can't recommend it enough. I, Robot. So, with that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that's Hilary Duff starring in A Cinderella Story. This is A Cinderella Story, a modernization of the classic Cinderella storyline where you have 2 internet pen pals who plan to meet in person at their high school Halloween dance. And the pen pals are Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray, who was then on One Tree Hill. And it's weird because this was a film that was largely panned by critics. It actually did worse than stuff like New York Minute, The Prince and Me, these Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, all these movies that came out around this time period that were really trying to capture the teenage zeitgeist. Sleepover was one we looked at last week. This proved to be the most successful one of the group in terms of its box office in general. It went on to become a massive hit, making $70 million off of a budget of only $19 million. So it did become a hit franchise in general, and it did become a series where it led to multiple direct-to-video sequels. None of them included Hillary or Chad in them. And yeah, a lot of people really didn't like the film in general. Most critics didn't like it at the time. It's definitely not a movie that would be in my target audience. That I'm not. Bottom line, I'm not in the target audience. I don't know what's going on with my words today. I'm not in the target audience that this movie is intended for. But with all of that said, I thought this movie was actually alright. I mean, it certainly is a lot better than the last time they tried to do a modernized version of Cinderella with that terrible Camilla Cabello movie that came out a couple of years ago. I mean, it's a fun idea in general, taking the concept of Cinderella and bringing it into a modern day LA, and it is a fun film in general, mostly because of the great acting all around here. I think Hilary Duff is very good in the film. Chad Michael Murray, even though I kind of criticized him a little bit in the beginning there, but he does work well as this film's equivalent of the Prince in here. You got a great cast of legendary seasoned veterans like Regina King, Jennifer Coolidge, who has a really great fun line in the trailer that I didn't get to show you, where she's talking to the two evil stepsisters, and she's just like, "I'm so mad at you right now," and the stepsisters are just like, "You don't look that mad," and she's like, "Oh, it's the Botox. I can't show emotions for an hour," and it's just like, that's a fun little line there, and the movie knows exactly what it's trying to do. It's trying to create these different ideas of how to adapt Cinderella into modern times. So instead of a slipper, it's a cell phone. Instead of taking place in a kingdom, it takes place in Los Angeles. I mean, it's a film that knows exactly what it is, and if you go into it knowing what it is, you can actually find some good elements to it in general. Is it one of the best Cinderella adaptations? No. I mean, it's not even that great of a film in general, but in terms of some of the other movies that were targeting to this specific demographic at the time, this one's probably the one that came out in 2004, besides stuff like Mean Girls, obviously, that did its job the best overall. I mean, this is a film that knows exactly who it's trying to target its audience to. It delivers well for them, and it's a film that does work in general for what it's trying to accomplish here. It's nothing too significant, it's nothing too crazy. It is kind of reminiscent to something like iRobot, because it is taking a lot from the classic storyline and doing something different with it, except in the case of iRobot, this is trying to do something that's very similar to the book, but in modern times. But, yeah, like I said, it's a fun little film. It's a film that I would say it's definitely better than I think people let on. I think it's a movie that, for the target demographic that it's going for, it works fine for what it is. It's probably one of Hilary Duff's best films in general, outside of doing stuff like the Lizzie McGuire movie, because we've looked at a couple of her movies already so far, and most of them have not been that great, and we've got another one coming out this year with Raise Your Voice, which was not that great of a movie. This is definitely one of the stronger ones in general. But, like I said, not a great film in general, but still better, I think, than most people get let on, so. So that's a Cinderella story. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that's Jeff Bridges and Kim Basinger in The Door in the Floor. From the director of Paranormal Activity 2. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Yeah, this is literally directed by the same guy that would give us Paranormal Activity 2 about 6 years from now, but... yeah, talk about a different movie in general from that to this. This is The Door on the Floor, based off the book by John Irving, where it alternates between tragedy and comedy, an exploration of the complexities of love in both its brightest and darkest corners. It's based off the book A Widow from 1 Year, and it's set in the privileged beach community of East Hampton, New York. And it chronicles one pivotal summer in the lives of famous children's book author Ted Cole, played by Jeff Bridges, and his beautiful wife Marion, played by Kim Basinger. Their once great relationship has been strained by tragedy, her resulting despondency, and her subsequent infidelities have prevented the couple from confronting a much-needed change in their relationship. Eddie O'Hare, the young man Ted hires to work as a summer assistant, is the couple's unwitting yet willing paw, and ultimately the catalyst in the transformation of their lives. And it's a film that you can pretty much tell is clearly going for Oscar bait, and yeah, it's a film that is pretty much what you'd expect it to be, honestly. It's a movie where yeah, it's pretty much going to go exactly where you're going to take it to. And I guess really the best thing about the film are the performances by Jeff Bridges and Kim Basinger. They're both really good in the film. You do buy into their chemistry, that they were once a couple, that they actually did care about each other, and then all of a sudden they've lost that love after all these years. I guess that's the one positive I can give the movie. The rest of the film itself is your typical Oscar Beatty, cliched riddle drama. It's a movie that is trying to go for awards consideration and just really does not really have a lot there to really take it to the next level, to do something that is completely different and radical than what other adaptations of this, other stories of this similar type have done before. I mean, we've seen this story done much better in other movies, but the one thing that I will say it has going for it are the performances by Bridges and Basinger, who are both very, very strong in the film. But other than that, though, it's really one of those movies I can't really recommend for anything more than a one-time watch. Other than that, there's no real reason to check this movie out again a second time. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Maria, Full of Grace. So in the film, you have Maria Alvarez, an independent, feisty, underpaid 17-year-old Colombian rose packager who's stuck in a tedious life and dead-end relationship with her good-for-nothing boyfriend, Juan. Things get even worse when an unexpected pregnancy and an ugly altercation with her unfair boss tempts her to accept the risky offer to become a drug mule, smuggling drugs from, and as if things weren't... This is literally how it's written on IMDb. If you think I'm screwing up around here, no. That's what it says right there. Smuggling drugs from, and as if things weren't bad enough. So just before you think I'm not reading it correctly, that's how it's written on IMDb. And as if things weren't bad enough, an unexpected pregnancy and an ugly altercation with her unfair boss will tempt Maria to accept the risky offer to become a drug mule. And just repeating the same thing I just said before. IMDb, you really got to look at these synopses before you give these the go-ahead. I mean, honestly. But will tempt Maria to... Okay... this is where it's different. Transporting drugs from Bogota to New York City. As things rapidly spiral out of control, the option of an early retirement and a peaceful future for Maria and her unborn baby begins to fade away. Is there a way out of this hopeless predicament? Well, there's a way out of reading this storyline, and that's what I just did. I clicked away from it. But this is a film that stars Catalina Sandino Moreno, who got nominated for an Academy Award for this performance, and she's been recently most seen in stuff like the Twilight Saga movie. She was in Eclipse. She was in Silent Night, the recent John Woo movie. She's in that MGM Plus show From. She was on The Affair. She's going to be in the new Ballerina movie coming out next year for the John Wick spinoff. But she's really good in the movie, and she really does command the screen in general. She really is a strong female presence here in a movie where, kind of like with The Door on the Floor, it really is one of those films that really does not have enough there to really make more for just a one-time watch, just to see this really good performance. Because this is, again, a story we've seen done to death so many times before. It doesn't really do a whole lot that's different compared to other stories like this. It does get kind of boring after a little bit here. None of the characters in here really are all that interesting, except for Maria, of course. But I don't know. Me personally, I didn't find a whole lot about it to really get into it, a lot to say it's worth more than a one-time watch. I think for a one-time watch, you definitely get your money's worth here. But other than that, though, there's really nothing that makes me say that this is something that you should see more than once. I mean, if you see it once, I think you enjoy it for what it is. But I don't think you'd expect anything more from it afterwards. But again, that's just my personal opinion on it, especially considering that this has got very high reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, 97% on there. So I guess I'm one of the three. I don't even think it's a bad movie in general, but I guess I'm closer to that 3% that don't like it than the 90% that do like it. Take that for what you will, but then again, it's Rotten Tomatoes. But anyway, that's Maria, Full of Grace. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and when we meet next time, we'll have 2 movies to look at, including the sequel to The Bourne Identity, Paul Greengrass's The Bourne Supremacy, the infamous Catwoman with Halle Berry and also Sharon Stone. We'll take a look at those 2 movies on the next episode, so should be a fun one there. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.